I'll do the same thing going upstairs, toes outward, step with the toe first, come down to the flat heel. I'm hanging out in the University of the parking lot, doing some listening to Good Prose, The Art of Nonfiction by Tracy Kidder and Robert Todd. At this point in the book, they're talking about memoir and the I, the identity, and how one has to choose how they want to represent themselves. And in that process, it's all too easy to fall victim to the idea that who I am now is smarter and better than the person that I was. And I'm going to talk about who I was, but I'm a little bit embarrassed. And therefore, the point of the memoir is to let you know that I've changed. I got it now. I've been educated. I'm different. And that's why I'm finally writing the book, because I got to the finish line. And here I am, living happily ever after as this new, more evolved, more enlightened person that's sharing the story of this poor fool that went through this stuff, but things turned around for him and he's okay now. So it's really interesting listening to them describe the identity in the midst of the stories we tell to ourselves and to others. How do we want other people to perceive us? Like, this isn't just about writing. This is about daily living in the era of social media, or what I will call personal media. I think social media is a bad term because it doesn't really grasp what's going on at an individual level. Kind of like the difference between sociology and psychology. Sociology studies group behavior. Psychology studies individual behavior. And to me, the individual behavior is crucial and I believe more important than the group behavior, because the group is made up of lots of individuals. Now, how group affects the individual is also important, but it's more important to look at the individual first, I believe. So, as I sit here listening, I watch an Amazon Prime truck pause for a moment in front of me because there's road construction here. And as I took in the scene of the truck, and then as it pulled away, the reveal of the dilapidated, closed brewery behind it, and then the auto parts store that's in a state of disrepair. In fact, the entire street that this mill is on is the street that had its glory days long, long ago. The mill that my studio is in was abandoned for a very long time. And that truck, Amazon Prime, represented to me the finish line, the finished product. I have arrived. We have arrived. There's this new state of progress in virtual commerce. We don't need beautiful towns and cities anymore where people take care of buildings and take care of roads and where there's a pride in the environment around you. No, that's not important. What's important is that you can get the cheapest product delivered to your door as quickly as possible, regardless of the effect that it has on the community that you live in. So, to me, Amazon represents the finish line of America. Like, we've finished it. It's done. And oh, those poor people that used to live in a day when they cared about their towns and buildings and streets, and they wanted to walk through beautiful environments. Those days are done. But I've got this beautiful package on my doorstep. That's exciting. And I can go live in a virtual environment now and use this particular product and maybe show it off on my personal media stream. Show people my finish line. Show them that I have now arrived. Look at me. Look at my body. Look at my bicep. Look at whatever it is that I want to show or portray. But it's all cherry-picked, and there's a cost. Whenever you get to one finish line, you leave something else behind. You abandon something. Maybe you abandon a town so that you can have a central warehouse somewhere. Or maybe you abandon a particular aspect of your life related to relationship or locality. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it's an important thing to recognize that when we arrive at a finish line, we have left everything prior in the past. So when we choose to tell our stories, do we tell them as if we're at a new, perfect, better finish line? Or do we honor and respect them as moments of a person that was in the moment at a given time in the past? This moment right here now in the car as I record this could feel like a finish line because I'm putting it online. I'm making it available like, hey, look at me in the car. Look at what I know. Listen to my thoughts. They're important. But 10 years from now, if this type of media still exists, TVO may say, wow, that guy was embarrassing. He thought he knew something, but yikes. Because I can look back at a video I posted in 2008 and I can see someone that really believed he was at the finish line. He was at the place where now what he has to say is worth sharing. It's worth making public. And me here, with a lot more education, can say, he really didn't know as much as he thought. But that's always going to be the case. So what is my point? Be careful of the finish line, because there is none, or at least not one that you can consciously be present to. Because the only finish line that you'll ever have in your life is the one that finishes you. And you won't get to look back on that one. So be kind to yourself and to others in your sharing. Be kind and allow people or afford people to be where they are on their journey. Be where you are on your journey and share what you do, but don't share it as if it's the end of the road, because it's just part of a long journey of discovery. All right, enough of that. Upstairs to discover something. I don't know. We'll find out. One of my Achilles bone spurs has started to flare up in the past few days. So I'm about to do the exercise that helped me to rehabilitate both of my bone spurs so that I was pain-free. I've been pain-free for years now until just the other day. And the doctors told me that I would most likely feel pain for the rest of my life, which is not the case. So this exercise is what I did to get from exceptional pain just walking every day, every step, to no pain at all, even though the bone spurs are still in both Achilles tendons. So here's what it looks like. I'm going to start by walking down the stairs, and you'll notice that my toes are splayed outwards. I'm somewhat bow-legged, and the key thing is that I'm stepping on the stair with my toe and then coming down to my heel, but the heel doesn't go below the stair. I'll do the same thing going upstairs, toes outwards, step with the toe first, come down to the flat heel, but don't go below the stair. That's the secret. What you doing, kiddo? Gonna drop? Gonna stop, drop, and roll? Come on, Fox. Come on. Come on. Let's go, Fox. Come on. Let's do it. Do it. Yes. Do it, Fox. Do it. Do it. Good girl. Good girl. I'm finishing up my concrete work for the day, and it is beautiful. Doing a little experiment with explosive pull-ups in a neutral grip position. Doing 3, then hopping on the elliptical for 2 or 3 minutes, then 3 pull-ups. 2 or 3 minutes on the elliptical, 3 pull-ups, and trying to be as explosive as possible. And it's now 11 p.m., so I'm going home. I could do a lot more. I'm not tired yet. In fact, the last set felt just as easy as the first, so curious to how many I could do if I kept going. I think that's 180 right there. I just got a comment on one of my older videos asking me why I listen to books that I don't like. And especially, why do I finish a book that I don't like? And this is by design. It's part of my process now to engage with material that is outside of my comfort zone or that belongs to a belief system that I don't presently hold or that's beyond my skill set. It's using terminology or understanding that I don't possess because I don't have an education in that area. So on a regular basis, I am choosing to interact with information that challenges me. Why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just read stuff that I already agree with and that supports the beliefs that I already hold? Because that's called confirmation bias, and I want to be very careful not to be overcome by this bias to confirm what we already know, what we already believe. I want to keep digging. I want to break what I know and break what other people know, and I want to see what remains. It's kind of like atom smashing in physics. You take a particle accelerator and move a particular type of particle really, really, really fast, almost to the speed of light, and then you smash it into another particle, and you look at the result. That's what I do. I want to do that with my own thoughts. I want to do that with things that I hold dear, with the foundations that I stand on, but also with everybody else's work. There's always something to learn when you push things. Now, I don't want to push things to hurt people. That's not my goal. My goal is to better understand. Basically, what is the thing that is underneath where you are taking your stand? Is it solid? Is it liquid? Is it fragile? Is it going to break? Or is it pretty stable? Can you jump on it? How hard can you jump on the thing underneath your stand before it breaks and you puncture through and you're lost in a sea of doubt? But it's not just limited to what I know and what others know. It's also about who I am. I want to jump on my own foundations and see what happens. What about me as a character in the world and in this body is also unstable and fragile? I want to find out. I want to beat it into a lower energy state so it's more sustainable and uses less energy. And I've noticed recently that since adopting skiing as my new form of physical expression, there is a whole new world of humbling that comes along with that sport. It is totally unlike running. There are so many different ways to train and different body parts to engage with and technique, which is constantly changing as the terrain changes. And it's incredibly humbling, especially when you see the best skiers in the country, if not the world, do it well. You can watch them on TV or YouTube and kind of get an idea that they're putting in a lot of effort. But then when you try to do what they're doing on the same terrain that they're doing it on, you realize how impossible it is. And then suddenly they look like gods. So it is one of the most humbling activities that I have ever engaged in, trying to become a better skier, because I'm constantly confronted with the power that really good skiers have. So it's caused me to embrace where I am in a very powerful way, to work with it and to get better because I'm willing to work with it. I don't simply walk away because there are people that are light years beyond anything I will ever achieve. It's a cause for me to ground myself and work with what is. And I know that this process that I'm engaged in is not appealing to most people. They don't want to break things. They want to be comfortable where they are, regardless of how fragile those foundations are, and regardless of the fragility within their body that they're afraid to confront, they're afraid to look at. They're afraid to put themselves to the test to see what needs to be worked on. Where am I really? Let's find out. It's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to be better off because we chose that path. Okay, home to dinner. I'm taking a moment in my warm educational bubble this morning. It's in the 30s right now. Last night and tonight are going to be quite chilly, but then I think those temps are behind us. Anyway, I'm sitting and listening to good prose, the art of nonfiction, and talking about language and the difference between writing and speaking, and that many writers write in a way that doesn't reflect how they actually think nor how they speak. So their advice is to write like you speak on your best day, or write the way you wish you could speak. And this is something that I struggle with as a writer, that it's much easier for me to communicate something through words, especially if I use my hands, which I'm doing beneath the camera, by the way. My hands are always moving because they help me find ideas. They help me shape what I'm saying, and they give it rhythm and tone. So one of the things that I've done in my studio is I've set it up so that I can walk around as I write. I can talk to my recorder, which is right here, and then later have it be transcribed. I can write on my big boards, which I can see from all over the room, and I can be in a state of physical gesticulation as I work with my thoughts and ideas. And when I do write them on my boards, I write them large so I can have these very big sweeping gestures with my body as I put chalk crayon to board. And that helps me get the words out. I need a body in order to communicate most effectively. When I sit in a chair with a laptop and just little fingers barely moving, there's not enough body for me to be coherent in my writing, at least not the level of coherence that I have when I can get up and move around and physically empower myself through a thought. And now I think I'm going to physically empower myself out the door into the chill and up the stairs. Stage 2 in the concrete application. The pressure treated board is now seated with bolts in it to go down into the concrete. And I'm slowly building up this area here to replace the beam, and I'll do that in a couple stages so that it doesn't just all flop right out. Today I'm roller skiing from Vermont to New York. You can see where the state line changes, how the pavement changes, and The New York pavement isn't nearly as good, and it doesn't have yellow lines, and the speed limit is much higher. Crazy over there. Do not cross that line. I'm in the final stages of the parking pad adjacent project. Finished the digging yesterday, and now I've got a weed protecting fabric down, which I'm going to cover with a thin layer of gravel just to hold it in place. And then I can pause and figure out what to do with this area. I'm going to put dirt down at this end, and that's going to be all flowers. So gravel up here, probably going to put in a shed, and then the corner of the driveway to the parking pad will be flowers. I just found this beauty across the street in the free pile. Nice hardwood desk that I will use for my laser cutting station. Pretty good set of neutral grip pull-ups today, but I'm experiencing some pain in the tendons that connect my bicep to my forearm from the shoveling. Lots and lots of shoveling on the project next to the parking pad, and it's really stressing my tendons out. So when I do pull-ups in addition, I'm feeling a burn in there, and I want to be really careful. I don't want to create tendonitis or a tear. So 4 pull-ups, super easy. 5 was super easy, but I could feel the tendons. So I'm able to fly way up over the bar, but I want to be smart, let my tendons relax, wait for the pain to go away, and maybe not do pull-ups for a couple days. But it's amazing how strong I've gotten just by randomly doing pull-ups whenever I want to, as many as I want to, as many sets. Today was 120, so 10 sets of 4, 10 sets of 5, 10 sets of 3. And I'm not tired, and I could do probably another 150 more, but gotta be careful with the tendons. The bigger of our 2 gardens is now plowed and tilled. And there's the blueberries, or at least some of them, some of our apple trees, and some deer. Hey, buddy. And more blueberries over there, more apples. It is a steamy Sunday morning. It's going to get up to 88 degrees today, which is maybe 31 or 32 degrees Celsius, and it's already in the 70s and pretty humid. So I'm gonna try to get some early exercise in. I parked under the shade of one of the plum trees here in the mill. Nobody's here on Sunday, so I get my pick of parking spots. Anyway, we've got Sunday brunch, and then got to work on the projects at home. I'm just finishing a listening session to Notes on Complexity by Neil Thies, and this book intrigued me because he talks about complexity, which is a favorite topic of mine, but also consciousness and the meaning of things. And what started as a pretty good book has very quickly devolved into spiritual apologetics. And if you don't know what that means, basically he's finding a way to justify his spiritual belief systems using the scientific knowledge at his disposal, and making some pretty big leaps. And that's unfortunate because there's some really good stuff in this book, but you find out as he goes along that he's not just simply talking about complexity and asking questions, but he's really providing answers, and he's pretty confident in his answers. And ultimately, this results in him talking about the 3 possible explanations for consciousness. 1, we have the materialist view that consciousness arises from the material universe. Number 2, panpsychism, which is that consciousness is a fundamental element of the universe, and as things become more and more complex, they basically piece together more and more conscious fundamental particles, and eventually consciousness can do what it does within us. But that consciousness is one of the fundamental, I don't want to call it particles, but one of the fundamental elements, one of the building blocks of the universe. And panpsychism has become very popular of late, and I'm not a fan, and nor is he. And I was like, yay! But then he goes into idealism, which I like even less. And idealism is basically Plato's idea of what we now call Platonic ideals. That you can look at a horse, and every horse is unique and different, but Plato believed that there was an ideal horseness, an archetype, an ideal, that represented the pure essence of horseness. And every living material horse was a bad copy of this ideal blueprint. And I thought we left idealism behind a long time ago because it doesn't account for the true nature of things, which is that everything is evolving. Complexity causes evolution. As complexity increases, evolution speeds up, etc. And therefore, there really is no such thing as a horse. A horse is just where we're focusing the lens at this particular moment. But if we focus the lens back here in the past, we no longer find this thing called horse. And as we move that lens along the evolutionary time scale, we see that horse just is a wave that's moving, and eventually it'll move into something else, just like human. There is no ideal essence called human, because a human is a moving wave that it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, it doesn't stand still. There is no essence that is static, that represents the purity of human beingness or human abilities such as consciousness. It's not a static thing. But this author uses Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorem to try to prove that idealism, which Gödel believed that there were these universal, ideal mathematical principles that were the essence of everything, but that couldn't be proven, which is why it's called the incompleteness theorem, that no system of logic could ever be complete. It could never fully explain everything, nor could it be consistent in doing so. So he's using this to say that it's the ideals that matter, it's the purity, and that pure ideal essence underneath everything is consciousness itself. So consciousness is not a building block. It's not like in panpsychism, a tiny little element that you can piece together and it gets greater and greater features as you do so. Like one water molecule is not even really water, it's not wet. It takes many water molecules, and then suddenly you have these properties that emerge, emergent phenomenon. So the panpsychists believe that if you take these tiny little particles or essences of consciousness, piece them together, and you get emergent consciousness like we possess. But in idealism, consciousness is all there is. There is nothing else. And I don't think Gödel believed that. And by the way, Kurt Gödel was Einstein's buddy, much younger than Einstein, but the only person that Einstein felt that he could really have, meaningful conversations, we'll call them that. So they both lived in Princeton, New Jersey after the war. And they would go on walks every day and discuss things. And Einstein greatly respected Gödel's mind. But anyway, I digress. It's a shame that this author had to go down that road, and using Gödel's incompleteness to essentially prove that consciousness is all that there is, and then to bring all these spiritual traditions in to basically nail the coffin shut. It's weak, and it's unfortunate, because they're really just trying to prove their own belief systems without recognizing that Gödel would basically tell them that it's not possible to prove your own belief systems, but they're making a case to do so here. Yeah, full review coming on Patreon soon. But disappointing. Anyway, I'm going to go upstairs, do some work out, then go home to brunch, and I'll see you soon. Hey, Shark. What you doing, Shark boy? Oh, giant shark. Come here, Shark boy. Oh, yeah. Good boy. Another week is in the books, and I don't want to give it a value or label or appraisal. Some challenging stuff has been going on. My mom is bouncing back a bit, but she's still having a rough time. She's really struggling. And whatever it is that made her pass out is still there. So I'm watching her closely. Anyway, the farm is heating up with its projects, in addition to the door sill and the parking project adjacent. I'm going to be ripping up a deck and digging a foundation, or digging a hole, a cellar, and putting in a foundation by hand. It's mowing season. The baby rabbits should be gone by now. So I've got to mow the property and the blueberry orchard, and the blueberries take a long time to mow. So there's a lot going on. My training volume has increased. It's bounced back, which is surprising, because 2 hours, 45 minutes to 3 hours just felt totally natural until it didn't. And again, I'm not following a plan, and I don't push myself. I don't even encourage myself. I just allow myself to move. I allow myself to fall into motion, and then I see what happens, and I just log the results. But stuff's been going on, and I just haven't been feeling all that energetic or motivated, and well, there's a lot to do. I just don't have the time as well. Coaching has picked up in addition, and I'm trying to find some time to really work on writing. I'm always researching, I'm always taking notes, I'm always working on my boards, plotting my thoughts, but actually editing and getting a product further towards release, that's something I struggle with. So anyway, taking steps, discovering the results in the midst of those steps. And I don't want to say it's exciting because there's a lot of challenge, but it's always interesting, and that keeps me going. So, speaking of going, I'm going home. It's almost 11 o'clock. All right, see you in the next one.